So, Sastipe, Namaste. I'm going to introduce you guys to the concept of breath work or breath practice with the idea that we sort of go through two different types of breathing practices. The first one is going to be the concept of box breathing. So, box breathing essentially is a concept where if you imagine a box, all of the sides, if my box fits together correctly, um, all of the sides are the same length. So there's things that we focus on in breathing, right? The exhale and the inhale. But in yoga, there's an additional concept of what's happening after you breathe in, that hold, and then what's happening after you breathe out, the second hold. So, in effect, what you're trying to do is breathe in, hold, breathe out, and hold. Those spaces that we have, those little holds, those are also important because they help us experience the breath. They help us experience what is happening to our body. And with that concept, we also have to think a little bit about how we best position our body in which to be able to perform pranayama, or this idea of breath work. And in this case, there's different types of breath work, but in this case, the first concept that we're going to talk about is this idea of the box breathing. So we're going to position ourselves so that our feet are on the ground and our ankles are seated directly below our knees. Ideally, you would have some seat that would allow your legs, your knees to sit below your hips, as I've done. Then your hips should be positioned beneath your shoulders, ears below your shoulders, and you can put your hands wherever you wish to. Some people will put them one over the heart, one over the belly. Some people will just put the hands directly down on over the knees. And the idea is to pick a timing that you can do that will not tax you. Like, this should not be a taxing exercise. It should be one that kind of helps you be able to clear your mind and breathe effectively by following your own cues, right? So it's about your own self-study. Going back to my first video, the idea of the niyamas, things that you should try to do in abundance, self-discipline, tapas, and swadhyaya, this concept of self-study. So what works for you? Now, if you have any breathing issues, you might try to follow the idea of shorter breaths, shorter breath counts. These are not truly like following seconds, this concept of 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. It can be as simple as you count 1, 2, so they're not quite true seconds in terms of time. But let's walk through, and we'll do 5 cycles, but let me describe what I'm going to do ahead of time. So I personally am going to pick a 4 count breath. So I'm going to do 4 counts in, 4 count hold, 4 count out, 4 count hold. So, and that will continue 5 cycles. This should take me roughly about, let's see, that's roughly 16 seconds times 5 is 80 seconds. So close to a minute and a half. So stay tuned. So watch what I do. So just the first one I'll count though. So I'm not truly doing the breaths, but the last 4 I'll do the breaths as without the counting. So okay, make sure your spine is nice and tall and strong. Have that nice curvature in the lumbar spine. So if you imagine the spine, it's not rigid like a rod. It kind of goes in this C shape depending on where we're at. So in the lower spine, we have that C shape where this is the front of the body, this is the back of the body. Our thoracic spine with rib cages kind of goes the opposite direction, and the cervical spine where the neck is goes in that kind of a C shape, mimicking the lumbar spine, and then we have the sacral spine, which is that part where the hips are at. that we sit on, and that goes the same direction as the rib cage. Opposite to where the curvature of the lumbar spine is. So I'm going to breathe in for 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because now I'm going to do it without the counting. So that was a full 5 cycles. The first one was with me counting, and then the other ones were with me just performing the action of the breathing. So, like I said, depending on where you're at in terms of your breathing, if you have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, you have asthma, you're deconditioned, you might want to start with 2. So then you breathe in 1, 2, you hold 1, 2, you breathe out 1, 2, and you hold 1, 2. Now, of course, if it's difficult for you, taxing for you, I encourage you to speak with your doctor about any sort of breath work that you're trying to do. Uh, but the idea behind the breath work is to activate the vagal system. So that idea of the counterbalance to the fight or flight. So fight or flight is our sympathetic system, you might have heard about. And rest and digest and meditate is kind of our parasympathetic system. So in the back of our throat, the vagal nerve runs. And as we breathe in, we take that deep breath and we kind of distend a little bit of the throat. That activates a little bit of our vagal system. And through doing that, it kind of brings a little bit of calmness, may bring the heart rate down, can help with anxiety, certainly. Um, depending on, as long as the breathing in is not, the breathing in, the holding, the breathing out is not anxiety provoking, it may be helpful as an adjunct. Um, and it also, in some ways, it creates bookends for us, right? So I talk about this with my patients. This concept that when we are able to fully experience the breath and we're truly focused just on that sensation, other things melt away, right? Um, the distractions that we have from the day don't become relevant in that period of time. So it can be helpful to do about 10 minutes of this type of breath work um, twice daily is a good initial start. Figuring out what is the pace that you want to move at. Um, when I say bookends, let's kind of explore what that means. So this concept that in the morning, if you do it, then you've created that space where you don't have to think about other things. If you can make that space and you can have that discipline to do that, then in this way, you can go on with the rest of your day and you can close off the other, the whole concept of your day uh, and conceal it between those 2 bookends that you've created, those 2 moments of internal reflection and breath work, right? Um, and then after that, you go to sleep. So it's your sleep cycle is separate from your working cycle or your daily cycle. This can be one aspect that can be helpful on some level. Like I said, nothing is truly encompassing. Different people may react very differently. And those are concepts and conversations that are best had between an individual and his or her or their primary care physician. The other concept I want to go through is three-part breathing. So this concept of breathing more deeply. So it's the same posture that we had before. Ankles beneath knees, knees kind of in line or slightly lower than the hips. Hips beneath the shoulders, a nice relaxed shoulder, and then ears above the shoulders in line. And the concept here is to try to breathe in through the chest and continue through the abdomen. So it looks a little bit like this. So as you're doing that, what you're doing is you're breathing first, filling the chest up. Different people describe it different ways, but you can fill it up horizontally, so in the direction of your shoulders. Then fill it up interior posteriorly, the sternum to the spine, and then into the gut, the abdomen, and allowing that diaphragm to kind of push down the abdominal muscles or the abdominal organs so that they kind of push out the abdomen to take a deeper breath, right? A lot of times people, like you'll see them breathe, and what do you see them do? They're breathing like this. But this does not fully activate our full ability to breathe. So to take a big deep breath, what we have to be able to do is to breathe down, fill up the lungs, and our diaphragm, which is dome shaped, when we've exhaled, we allow it to flatten out. And that's what the diaphragm does, right? So it starts from here when we've breathed out completely, and then goes down and flattens out. And as it flattens out, it'll push on our intestines, any of the organs we have there, and those will sort of get pushed closer to the abdominal muscles, and that's what allows our belly to go out, right? So this is the concept of abdominal breathing, right? So when we breathe in, let's do it again. And when we breathe out, we're just doing the opposite. So after we've had that abdomen fully expanded, we're allowing the abdomen to contract back, and then allowing the chest to contract back, in both directions. So let's do a couple of those. So I'll leave you with those concepts to practice. You can obviously watch this video a couple times. I tried to make it short enough that it's easy enough to follow, and you can obviously decide what works for you. One of the things that I encourage you is to engage with the material, right? So I encourage you to leave comments. I encourage you to say, hey, I would do this differently, or this is something I've tried. Because the idea here is not only that I help you guys understand or help um, you know the people who watch my videos better understand how yoga and breath work and pranayama works. It's also the concept that uh, you're able to help others, right? So you're able to help yourself learn the concepts, but you're also able to help others understand some of the concepts. And we best do that by practicing these things. So regular practice is very important. Give it a shot for the figuring out when it best fits into your schedule. And I look forward to hearing back.